What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my final college football playoff predictions as we head into conference championship weekend of the 2024 college football season, also known as the postseason. It is almost here. The playoff rankings, came out on Tuesday. We got the final playoff rankings coming out on Sunday, which is also known as Selection Sunday, and we will find out this Sunday afternoon who is in the playoff field. It's not a 14 playoff anymore, it's a 12-team playoff era, so I'm really excited for it. Who is going to be in the college football playoff this coming Sunday? But we got to get through conference championship weekend first. And I made some conference championship, weekend predictions, throughout the last 4 days. I just did Power 4 conferences, but I also made my prediction for the Group of 5 championship games. I'll get to those in just a minute. And conference championship weekend actually starts tonight. We got the Mountain West Championship coming up tonight, Boise State and UNLV in a rematch, and then we got Tulane taking on Army in the American Championship. So those are pretty good games coming up tonight. I'll get to those in just a moment, but these are my final playoff predictions, and this is like a prediction video of what I think the committee is going to do here based off of my predictions for the conference championships, and then also based off of those playoff rankings that we had on Tuesday night. Now, keep in mind, I don't really feel confident with these predictions, let's be honest. It's kind of hard to figure out what's going to happen on Selection Sunday when these playoff rankings come out and see who's going to be in the 12-team field, because, with all the chaos that we had in the month of November, we could see chaos again here going into conference championship weekend. But let's go ahead and get right into the bracket, and I'm going to start with the 5 conference champions for me, and here is what the bracket looks like. Again, the college football playoff 12-team playoff era is officially starting up in a couple more weeks. And again, how the 12-team playoff works: first round games are held on campuses, second round games, semifinals, and national championships are held on neutral site venues. Second round and semifinals, I believe, are on New Year's Six Bowl locations. So I think that's how it works this year for the 12-team playoff. But these are my top 5 conference champions. I got Oregon at number 1, Georgia at number 2, Boise State at number 3, Arizona State at number 4. So these top 4 teams all get bye weeks in the first round for me, and then Clemson here at number 12. So you're probably wondering, why is Boise State, Arizona State, and Clemson at number 3, number 4, and number 12? Well, I'll get to those in just a second, but I got Oregon at number 1. I think Oregon is going to be that number 1 seed. I think they beat Penn State coming up tomorrow night. I think they beat Penn State in that Big Ten championship game, and I did predict that one to be like a 4-point win for Oregon, so not like a big win, but it's going to be a defensive battle in that game. And I just feel like, when Penn State gets into those big-time games with James Franklin, he just doesn't really know how to win them. So I think Oregon will be ready to go in this one. And again, they're not just playing for a conference championship. They're playing to be the top team in this college football playoff bracket. So I got the Ducks here at number 1. Georgia at number 2. I got them beating Texas in the SEC championship. If you have not seen all my prediction videos for all the conference championship predictions, be sure to go back and check them out right here on the channel from Monday through Thursday. I did the ACC on Monday. Tuesday I did the Big Ten. Wednesday I did the Big 12. And then yesterday I closed things out with the SEC. And I got Georgia as the number 2 seed. I think they're going to beat Texas here for the second time in a row. And I know we've seen, in the past in college football, it's hard to beat teams like twice in a row. But we saw that last year, in the Pac-12, when Oregon and Washington went at it. Washington beat Oregon for the second time in a row. And I think Georgia does that. And Georgia is an underdog again against Texas, which really did surprise me from yesterday. And I think Georgia's going to prove not just people wrong, but also the committee wrong, that they'll get that first round bye. So I got Georgia as the number 2 seed. It wouldn't really shock me if Texas did defeat Georgia, to be honest, but I think Georgia, when it comes to these postseason games, they'll be ready for it. All right, we get now to the important stuff. Boise State and Arizona State and Clemson. So we'll start with Boise State. I got them winning the Mountain West Championship against UNLV for the second time in a row. And yeah, it's kind of hard to beat a team 2 times in a row, but I think Boise State does that. I think they get in here as a number 3 seed, because I do have Clemson beating SMU in the ACC Championship. I know it's a risky pick and all, but I don't know. SMU has not played a big game in a while, and I just feel like Clemson has nothing to lose. I know Clemson's had a lot of injuries to deal with, but, I just feel like Dabo Swinney will have his team ready to go. I know they're a 3-loss Clemson team, and they've been up and down, and they're coming off a loss to South Carolina. But I think they were just looking ahead, to the conference championship game for this weekend. So, yeah, Boise State, I think, will get that number 3 seed if SMU loses, and then same thing with Arizona State. I think Arizona State and Boise State will have a pretty good case for an argument here for the number 4 or number 3 spot. But Clemson here, they just don't really have a great resume. Clemson has not beaten a team, that's really that good, to be honest. Maybe you can probably, say that they probably beaten like some teams up there on their schedule, but they haven't really done that. They've had like 3 losses to some really good teams. Like, for example, they lost to Georgia and South Carolina, both in the SEC. But their third loss, the third loss came to Louisville, and that's an 8-4 team. So that's not like a bad loss. It's like a solid loss for them. But yeah, Clemson wouldn't really have enough of a resume here to get in here as a top 4 team. So I think Arizona State, with their resume, they have a win over BYU, which is really good for them. And if they beat Iowa State in the Big 12 championship tomorrow, I think they jump up to number 4 if Clemson beats SMU. So I think that's what's going to happen here. If Boise State, beats UNLV and Arizona State beats Iowa State, and if Clemson beats SMU, then Boise State and Arizona State will jump up to number 3 and number 4. And again, I don't really think Clemson will be that top 4 team just because of their resume. And plus, Boise State and Arizona State were both ranked ahead of Clemson in the playoff rankings from Tuesday night. So these are my 5 conference champions. Clemson will have to play a first round game, but the top 4 teams all get a bye week in the first round. So let's now get into my at-large teams here from 5 through 11. And like I said, I don't really feel confident with these playoff predictions. I really don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm going to give it my best shot here. So at number 5, I got Notre Dame. So I think Notre Dame jumps up to number 5 here. Like I said, if we see Oregon, beat Penn State, and we see Georgia beat Texas, I think Notre Dame's going to have a pretty good case for an argument here to, jump up to number 5. Look, Notre Dame doesn't have a great resume. Their best win probably could be against Texas A&M. Their worst loss, obviously, that one loss coming, to Northern Illinois. That was one of their worst losses on their schedule. And then, of course, you got the win over Texas A&M. That's about it. Notre Dame doesn't really have like another great win on their resume. I mean, you could probably say that Louisville's probably a solid win, but it's an okay win. Louisville is like 8-4, and then obviously Navy is not like a big win for them. Maybe Army is also their best win, but they blew out both of those teams, Navy and Army. But Notre Dame at number 5, I think how they jump up to number 5 is because they're both, they're ranked both behind Penn State and Texas, and I just feel like the committee is going to put Notre Dame at the number 5 spot if Penn State and, also Texas lose their conference championships. That's just how I think the committee is going to do it, because we've seen the committee be really biased, in like name brand wise, and I just feel like they'll put Notre Dame there inside the top 5. So that's just my gut here. That's telling me that Notre Dame's going to jump up to number 5 if we see Texas and Penn State lose in their conference championships. So let's now move on to number 6. That is, of course, the Texas Longhorns. Between Texas and Penn State, it's kind of hard to say who will be ahead of each other. Texas, obviously, you look at them. They don't really have like a great win on their resume. They have like a loss to Georgia. That's about it. I mean, that's obviously, helping them out with their resume just a little bit to stay inside the top 10. But yeah, Texas and Penn State are pretty close. Even though Penn State might have a better resume, Penn State has a win over Illinois, which is a 9-3 team. And then they got the 2 losses, they got a couple losses on their resume, or actually one loss, I should say. They're 11-1, and they lost to Ohio State. So that's about it for both of these teams. But yeah, Texas at number 6, I think, based off of them being ahead of Penn State in the playoff rankings, they will be ahead of Penn State here at number 6. And then we go on to number 7. There is Penn State. So I think Penn State gets the number 7 seed. I don't think the committee is going to penalize both Texas and Penn State outside the top 7. I mean, Ohio State, already lost to Michigan, so I think they'll probably keep Ohio State, behind these 2 teams. But maybe the committee probably puts Ohio State maybe at number 6, or they could probably jump them up to number 5. I mean, we never know. We could probably see a lot of chaos, and that probably will happen. So, yeah, Texas and Penn State both here at number 6 and number 7. Let's now move on to number 8. There is Ohio State. So I think Ohio State will stay here at number 8. Just like they did after falling, to Michigan. I think they'll probably get in here as an at-large team at 10-2. So I got Ohio State here at number 8. Move on to number 9. That's Tennessee. So Tennessee is already a lock for the playoff. I mean, Texas and Penn State, and then Tennessee and Ohio State are already locks for the playoff, to be honest, because they already got big wins on their resumes. Yeah, Tennessee got a huge, lucky break when Ole Miss and Alabama both lost. Both of those teams were in playoff conversation. But yeah, Tennessee got pretty lucky. So I think Tennessee definitely will be right here at number 9. This is a matchup I would like to see. Ohio State versus Tennessee in the first round. That would be a really good playoff matchup, and then we could probably get Notre Dame versus Clemson in the first round as well. Let's now move on to number 10. Number 10 and number 11 were pretty tough for me. And look, I know Alabama is on the bubble. South Carolina is on the bubble as well, but I don't really see Alabama getting in just based off of what I think the committee is going to do. I think the committee is probably going to really prove me wrong and probably put Alabama here, maybe at number 10 or number 11. But that number 10 seed for me is SMU. I don't think SMU should be really penalized. Whether they, lose the conference championship by a good margin. Let's say they lose by a couple touchdowns. Does the committee really penalize them for that? I really don't think they should, because I think SMU, the way they played this year against some good competition, against Duke, that was a big game for them. And then, of course, Louisville in the early part of the season. And then they also were really close to beating BYU. So I think SMU with their loss to BYU and then a couple wins over Duke and then also the close loss in the ACC championship, I don't think the committee really should penalize them, but I could be wrong here. Alabama might jump up against SMU, and they'll probably put Alabama here at number 10. I just don't really think the committee can do that. Now, if Alabama's here in the playoff over SMU for a team that, just lost their conference championship, yeah, that would really shock me, to be honest. I don't think SMU would really be penalized here for losing a conference championship game. And look at this. I don't really have Texas and Penn State moving down that much because they just lost a conference championship. That's really about it. So SMU really should not be penalized, even though they lose a conference championship game. Maybe it's a Clemson, but they could prove me wrong. They could still probably win this, tomorrow. We'll just see if SMU is for real as a playoff contender. And then number 11 for me, I think this team is an automatic, lock for the playoff as well. That's Indiana. So I think Indiana is that last team that gets in here at number 11. I don't see an 11-1 Indiana team passing an 11-2 SMU team because SMU played in a conference championship. I think SMU has a better resume than Indiana, if I'm not mistaken, either. Because, again, I talked about it, SMU with that one loss to BYU. Then they would have a second loss to Clemson, which really would be a good loss on their resume. And then also they got wins over Duke and Louisville. That would probably boost their resume. Indiana just doesn't have any quality wins, but they've been blowing out several opponents, so I think that really is the reason why Indiana gets into the playoff bracket for this weekend. And then, of course, their only loss came to Ohio State, so that would probably be enough here to put them in a first-round playoff game. So that is what I think the field is going to look like this Sunday. Again, I don't really feel confident with it, but like I said, back to my conference champions, I got Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State, and Clemson all winning their conference championships. I think Notre Dame jumps ahead to number 5 because I just feel like the committee is going to do that if Texas and Penn State loses. And then Ohio State and Tennessee are automatic locks for the playoffs. Same thing with Indiana. And I don't think SMU gets penalized for losing a conference championship. If the committee does that, though, then Alabama is going to be in here as a 9-3 team. I just don't see any way that the committee can do that. We've seen it, though, in the past with this committee. They put in, a Florida State team out of the playoff that was undefeated, and they just put Alabama, who won their conference championship. Could we see a lot of chaos here in this playoff coming up on Selection Sunday? But we got to get through conference championship weekend. So that is what I think the playoff is going to look like. Those are my final playoff predictions heading into the postseason of this 2024 college football season. Let me guys know what you think about my final playoff predictions, and also give me your final playoff predictions down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.